I'm staring at my wedding mood board when my phone rings. James's name lights up the screen, and I smile. 3 months until I walk down the aisle toward him. Hey, almost done with work? I was thinking we could. My voice trails off as I hear his breathing on the other end. Something isn't right, Davina. His voice sounds hollow, distant. I can't do this. The pen I'm holding slips from my fingers, leaving a thin blue line across the sample invitation. What do you mean you can't do this? The meeting with the caterer? We can reschedule. The wedding. Us. Each word lands like a stone. I can't marry you. The room tilts sideways. I grip the edge of my dining table, wedding magazine sliding onto the floor. James, what are you talking about? Yesterday we were picking honeymoon destinations. Your family showed me proof. His voice hardens. About the alcoholism, the mental instability you've been hiding from me. My stomach turns to ice. What? What alcoholism? What instability? Your mother and sister came to my office today. The formal tone in his voice is one I've never heard directed at me. They had documentation, Davina. Medical records. Incidents. Things you never told me about. My throat constricts. None of that is true. James, you know me. Do I? The question hangs between us. They showed me reports from the rehab facility you attended last year, the same time you told me you were at that event planning conference in Chicago. The room spins faster. I've never been to rehab. I was at that conference. I have the badge, the photos, the contacts I made. They're lying. I whisper, my voice trembling. I don't understand why, but they're lying. Your mother cried, Davina. She said they've been covering for you for years, that they didn't want to interfere, but they couldn't let you start a marriage based on lies. My mind races back to our family dinners, where I'd shared my deepest insecurities with my mother and sister. How Blair had held my hand when I confessed my fear that James might leave like my college boyfriend did. How Mom had poured wine and assured me, you can always trust family to have your back. James, please. I pleaded. Whatever they showed you was fabricated. I've never had a drinking problem. I've never been treated for mental issues. I'm the same person you proposed to 6 months ago. His sigh carries the weight of someone who's already made up his mind. Blair showed me the letter from your therapist, the one recommending inpatient treatment after your breakdown in February. When I'd worked 16-hour days planning the Henderson wedding. When James had brought me soup because I'd caught a cold from exhaustion. I can't build a life with someone who'd hide something this serious. His voice catches. Goodbye, Davina. The call ends. I stare at my phone until the screen goes dark, then at my reflection in the black glass. Is there something I can't see? Some sign of the unstable alcoholic they describe to the man I love? I walk to my bathroom mirror, searching my face. The same blue eyes look back, wide with shock. The same hands that have never shaken from withdrawal tremble now with the force of betrayal. A memory surfaces. Blair's face when I announced our engagement at Christmas dinner. The flash of something in her eyes before she arranged her features into a smile. Mom's too bright voice. Well, this is certainly a surprise. My confusion turns to dawning clarity. The boyfriend in college, who suddenly stopped calling after meeting my family. The job interview for the event planning firm that mysteriously fell through after a reference check. The client who canceled after Blair happened to run into them at a charity function. I stand straighter, my reflection sharpening into focus. This isn't the first relationship they've interfered with. My hands shake as I pick up my phone, blocking James's number, his email, his social media accounts. I can't bear to see the photos of us still displayed on his pages, evidence of a happiness that evaporated in a 5-minute phone call. 20 minutes later, I'm parking outside Blair's apartment building, my heart pounding against my ribs. The elevator ride to the 14th floor stretches into eternity. She opens the door with a champagne flute in hand. Her expression shifts from surprise to something like satisfaction when she sees my face. Well, hello, little sister. Shouldn't you be finalizing wedding plans? The false concern in her voice makes my stomach twist. Why? The single word is all I can manage. Blair takes a leisurely sip from her glass. He deserved to know the truth, Davina. We were protecting him. There is no truth. You fabricated everything. She leans against the doorframe, blocking my entrance. Did we? Or did you just convince yourself that your problems aren't real? That's what unstable people do, you know? Heat rushes into my face. You destroyed my relationship, my engagement, my future. Why would you do that to me? A flash of genuine emotion crosses her face, not guilt, but contempt. You're used to being abandoned anyway. Remember Dad walking out when you were 16? He left because of your behavior then, too. My breath catches. Dad left because of Mom's affairs, something we never discussed but all knew. Blair is rewriting even that history. I won't let you destroy anything else in my life, I tell her, my voice steadier than I feel. She smiles, glass raised in mock toast. Good luck convincing anyone to believe you over Mom and me. Walking back to my car, I realize the stakes are higher than just my wedding. My reputation, my future relationships, my standing with extended family all at risk. Blair and Mom have carefully built their credibility while systematically undermining mine for years. I sit in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, and make a call to the one person who might believe me. Margaret Parker. The attorney's voice is brisk, professional. Margaret, it's Davina Hughes. I fight to keep my voice from breaking. I need your help. My mother and sister have been spreading lies about me. They just destroyed my engagement by convincing James I'm an unstable alcoholic with fabricated medical records. Silence, then. Come to my office. If they lied about you, that's defamation. We can address this legally. For the first time since James's call, I feel a small measure of relief. Someone believes me without question. 30 minutes later, I sat in Margaret's warm office. Her law degrees hang on the wall behind her desk, a reminder of her formidable reputation. The room smells of leather and lavender, and the steady click of her pen as she takes notes provides an anchor for my spiraling thoughts. Start from the beginning, she says, and don't leave anything out. I tell her everything, from James's call to Blair's smug confession. Margaret listens, her expression grave but unsurprised, as if she's heard stories like mine before. When I finish, she places a hand on my shoulder. You're not alone in this fight, Davina. Family can cause the deepest wounds, but they don't have the right to destroy your life with lies. I could retreat, nurse my wounds in private, try to rebuild quietly. Or I could fight, expose the truth, reclaim my life and reputation. Looking at Margaret's determined face, I make my choice. They've taken my fiancé, twisted my history, isolated me from people I love. I silently vow, no more. Margaret's law office becomes command central over the next 3 days. I watch her methodical approach with growing admiration and mounting horror as years of coincidences transform into deliberate sabotage under her trained eye. See this pattern? Margaret slides another document across her desk. Every serious relationship you've had ended within 2 weeks of introducing them to your family. I trace the timeline she's created, my throat tightening. College boyfriend Michael, Thomas from my first job, Jason last year, James 3 days ago. 4 relationships, 4 abrupt endings, all following the same pattern. And look at these. She places printed emails beside the timeline. Anonymous messages sent to each man, with eerily similar language about my hidden issues and family concerns. Where did you get these? My voice sounds distant, unfamiliar. I called Michael as you hung up. He said kept the emails because something felt off. The others forwarded theirs after I reached out. Margaret taps one paragraph highlighted in yellow. Notice the phrasing for her own well-being. Blair used that exact phrase in the recording from yesterday. The room tilts slightly as another piece clicks into place. My Chicago conference last year. They told James I was in rehab then, but I have photos, contacts I made there. And your sister knew exactly when to place you elsewhere. Margaret pulls out a sheet with Blair's handwriting. My stomach lurches at the familiar slant of her letters. It's a detailed outline titled, Helping James See the Truth. Item 1, Chicago Rehab Story. My hands begin to shake. They've been planning this, actually planning how to destroy my engagement. Not just your engagement. Margaret pulls out a folder bulging with notes. Your neighbor, Mrs. Wilkins mentioned your mother had private conversations with her about being concerned for your stability. The Henderson wedding you organized? Blair introduced the client to a competing planner, suggesting you might be unreliable. The evidence mounts. A cousin who stopped calling after my mother mentioned my struggles. 3 clients who suddenly canceled after meetings where Blair happened to run into them. Job interviews mysteriously falling through after reference checks. The pattern emerges with brutal clarity. Every time I gain traction in my career or personal happiness, someone intervened. My phone rings, startling us both. Dad's name flashes on the screen. I answer the speaker. Davina. His voice sounds strained. Why didn't you tell me you went to rehab last year? We could have helped you. Margaret reaches over, squeezes my hand as my world contracts further. Dad, I never went to rehab. I was at a conference. I have the badge, the photos. Your mother showed me the admission papers, Davina. His sigh carries disappointment that cuts deeper than anger would. Blair's worried about how you're handling the breakup. They say you're making accusations. They're lying, Dad. My voice breaks. They've been lying about me for years. The silence stretches. I need to go, he finally says. We'll talk when you're feeling more stable. The call ends. I stare at the dark screen, the final devastating truth settling into my bones. They've even convinced Dad. Margaret slides a box of tissues toward me, but I push it away. Tears won't help now. What I need is clarity. I pull a blank legal pad toward me. They've been documenting false evidence. I need to document the truth. For the next hour, I list every suspicious incident I can remember. The college internship that fell through after my mother spoke to the director. The friendship with Sarah that ended suddenly when her parents invited us to dinner with my family. The apartment I mysteriously lost despite having perfect credit. With each memory, the lens through which I viewed my life shifts. What I'd attributed to bad luck or personal failings now appears as careful, deliberate sabotage. They didn't want me to succeed? I whisper, the realization burning through me, because it threatened their narrative. Margaret studies me across her desk. We need to understand why. This goes beyond simple jealousy. She pulls out more documents, financial records, social media histories, family correspondence. The pieces assemble into a motive that makes my stomach turn. James comes from money, Margaret says. His family has connections Blair has been trying to access for years. Your engagement threatened her social standing. The investigation reveals more layers. My mother borrowed money from James's family for Blair's fledgling interior design business. Blair's relationship with Thomas Andrews, son of a retired judge, heir to old money, hinged on maintaining her family's respectable image. They're not cartoon villains, Margaret explains, her voice gentle. They believed they were protecting something valuable, their status, their narrative. In their minds, they're the heroes. I think of Blair's face when I announced my engagement at Christmas dinner, the flash of panic before her practiced smile, my mother's too bright voice. This is certainly a surprise. They've been cultivating this image of me as unstable for years, I say, building credibility for the moment they needed to use it. Kay? Margaret nods. And now they're cornered. That makes them more dangerous, not less. My phone pings with a text. Unknown number. I read it aloud. Davina, it's Aunt Susan. I've been hearing rumors. We have experienced the same treatment from your mother years ago. Call me? Another message follows from Kevin, my former colleague at the event planning firm. Blair approached 3 of our clients last year. I have documentation if you need it. A weight lifts slightly from my chest. I'm not alone in this. Margaret begins outlining legal options. We can start with a cease and desist letter. Gather evidence for a defamation suit. My boss calls next, her voice firm. I always thought those rumors seemed out of character for you, Davina. Whatever you need, we've got your back. By evening, we've assembled a network with different areas of expertise, legal knowledge, family history, professional support, the foundation for a collaborative approach rather than an isolated confrontation. As I gather my notes to leave Margaret's office, a strange calm settles over me. The anger remains, but it's cooler now, more focused, strategic. I'm not the first person they've done this to, I tell Margaret as she walks me to the door. The weight of that knowledge should crush me, but instead, it strengthens my resolve. But I can be the last. The email glows on my laptop screen like a beacon. Michael's name in my inbox after 2 years of silence feels surreal. Davina, I found something you should see. His message reads, I kept this because it never made sense. Now I'm wondering if it connects to what your aunt told me about your situation. I click the attachment with trembling fingers. A forwarded email appears, dated 3 days after I'd introduced Michael to my family. We're concerned about Davina's behavior. Her drinking has escalated, and she becomes volatile when confronted. We love her, but she needs professional help before she can maintain a healthy relationship. For your own protection, please distance yourself. The signature line reads simply, a concerned friend. Margaret leans over my shoulder, her perfume a comforting mix of lavender and vanilla. The phrasing is distinctive, she says, tapping the screen. Look at how they constructed that sentence about professional help. Blair used almost identical wording in the documents we found. I stare at the evidence, my heart pounding against my ribs. Can we trace where it came from? Already on it. Margaret makes a call while I read the email for the 10th time, searching for clues I might have missed. 20 minutes later, Margaret's tech specialist confirms what we suspected. The IP address matches your mother's home network. The timestamp shows it was sent when only Blair was home, according to the timeline you provided. We need more, I say, surprising myself with my calm determination. We need to get them to confirm this in their own words. Margaret nods, setting her coffee mug down with a decisive click. This establishes a pattern of malicious intent, but you're right, a recorded admission would make our case ironclad. I allow myself a small, unfamiliar feeling power. For the first time since James's devastating phone call, I have solid evidence. Not just suspicions or patterns, but concrete proof that can't be dismissed as paranoia or misunderstanding. I can finally confront them with more than just my word against theirs. I say, straightening my shoulders. I have proof now. The next afternoon, I park outside my childhood home, recorder hidden in my purse. Margaret's legal guidance plays in my mind. Get them talking about their actions without revealing what I know until they've incriminated themselves. The familiar path to the front door feels different now. Family photos hanging in the entryway reveal new messages. Mom standing slightly in front of me in every picture, Blair positioned prominently while I'm often partially obscured or caught mid-blink. Blair opens the door with a champagne flute in hand, her expression shifting from surprise to smugness when she sees me. Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence. She steps back, allowing me inside. Mom's in the sunroom. I follow her through the house, noticing how my shoulders instinctively hunch forward, a physical response to years of subtle diminishment. Mom looks up from her gardening magazine, removing reading glasses that hang from a pearl chain around her neck. Davina, this is unexpected. I needed to talk to both of you, I say, taking a seat across from them. The recorder in my purse captures every word as I carefully guide the conversation. About James. Such a shame how that ended, Mom says, her voice dripping with false sympathy, but perhaps for the best. I let them talk, asking innocent questions about what exactly they told James, watching as they exchanged glances, their confidence growing with each unchallenged statement. When they've finished their practiced performance of concern, I reach into my bag and place the printed email on the coffee table between us. Explain how Michael got this, I say quietly. Blair's expression changes so quickly it's almost comical, from confident to defensive in the space of a heartbeat. Her fingers tighten around the stem of her glass. What are you talking about? She asks, but her eyes never leave the paper. This email was sent from this house when only you were home, Blair. I tap the paper. The same email that ended my relationship with Michael, 2 years ago. Mom reaches for the paper, scanning it quickly. This proves nothing. It matches the wording in the documents you showed James. I continue. The same language about professional help and volatile behavior. The same false claims about drinking. Blair's laugh sounds brittle. People believe me, and Mom, no one believes you. The admission hangs in the air between us. Not a denial, but a statement of power of how they've positioned themselves against me in our social circles. Mom attempts damage control, her voice softening to the tone she uses when trying to appear reasonable. We were only trying to protect you from bad relationships. Michael wasn't right for you. Neither was James. By lying about me, I keep my voice steady. By creating false medical records and fabricating stories about rehab stays that never happened. You've always been dramatic, Mom says, sighing heavily. Always making everything about you. I'm considering legal action, I say, watching their reactions carefully. Defamation has serious consequences. Mom's mask slips completely. No one would take your word over ours. I'm not asking them to, I reply, standing up. I have evidence that speaks for itself. The stunned silence as I walk out feels like the first real victory I've had in years. In my car, I replay the recording, hearing Blair's damning words with perfect clarity. People believe me, and Mom, no one believes you. Not a denial of their actions, but a boast about their effectiveness. Margaret listens to the recording that evening, Her office now a familiar sanctuary. This is legally significant, she confirms, stopping the playback. Clear admissions, no ambiguity. They didn't even try to deny sending the emails or creating false records. 3 days later, Aunt Susan organizes dinner at her small cottage outside town. 5 family members who have questioned the rumors about me sit around her antique oak table. Uncle William, Cousin Thomas, and his wife Rachel, and my father's elderly sister Martha. I always thought something wasn't adding up about their stories, Thomas says after hearing the recordings. The Davina they described never matched the cousin I knew. Uncle William, a retired banker with a reputation for thoroughness, studies the evidence with reading glasses perched on his nose. He removes them slowly, folding them with deliberate care. This stops now, he says firmly. We stand with Davina. The table divides our family clearly, those manipulated by Mom versus those supporting me. For the first time, the division favors truth rather than convenience. My phone rings, Margaret's name lighting up the screen. The recording is admissible, she says when I answer. We have a solid case if you want to proceed. Word spreads quietly. Close friends call to apologize for believing rumors. 2 former clients reach out about potential projects, mentioning they'd heard clarifications about previous misunderstandings. After dinner, I stand on Aunt Susan's porch, watching fireflies dance in her garden. The weight I've carried for years feels lighter. Not gone completely, but manageable now that I'm not carrying it alone. The path forward splits before me. Push for complete victory now while momentum favors me, or gather more evidence for something they can't possibly deny. Either way, for the first time since James's devastating call, I feel the steady ground of truth beneath my feet, and I'm not going anywhere. The next day, Margaret's office transforms into a war room over the next 2 weeks. Evidence boards stretch across the walls, layered with timelines, family photos, and legal documents. Colored strings connect events, creating a visual map of years of manipulation. The sheer scale of it takes my breath away. We need to be thorough, not just angry, I tell Margaret as we organize a new batch of witness statements. Anger got me through the first confrontation, but it won't finish this. Margaret nods, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose as she reviews a document. This isn't about one confrontation, Davina. It's about permanent resolution. Your mother and sister have been orchestrating this campaign for years. I catalog each allegation methodically, matching them with counter-evidence. The rehab facility where I supposedly stayed during my Chicago absence has provided written confirmation I was never a patient. My bank records show hotel charges in Chicago during the conference dates. The pieces fit together with a satisfying click. Aunt Susan arrives with a thick folder of family correspondence. Your mother has been doing this for decades, she explains, spreading letters across the table. She did the same to your cousin Jennifer back in the 90s, convinced everyone she was unstable after Jennifer confronted her about stealing from Grandma's estate. I remember Jennifer moving away suddenly, I say, the memory shifting into new focus. Mom said she had a breakdown. Jennifer had evidence, Susan replies, but Elaine got to the family first. No one believed her. The work feels less emotionally satisfying than confrontation. Part of me wants to storm into Mom's house and demand immediate justice. But as patterns emerge from our methodical documentation, I recognize the value of patience. How do we know which family members are still feeding them information? I ask, reviewing our contact list. Margaret's expression turns calculating. We don't contact anyone we're not absolutely certain about. Period. I work the phone for hours each day, connecting with colleagues who experienced Blair's interference. 3 clients confirmed she approached them directly, suggesting I had reliability issues. My former assistant reveals, Blair offered her a job contingent on sharing my client list. Aunt Susan becomes our family historian, documenting Mom's pattern of controlling narratives. She told your father you'd refuse to see him after the divorce, Susan reveals, but you were waiting by the phone every weekend. Margaret prepares legal documents with surgical precision. Each defamation instance needs specific documentation, she explains. The forged medical records are our strongest evidence. We establish a network of allies, each with specific responsibilities. My colleague Vanessa monitors industry gossip, feeding us reports of new rumors. Margaret's paralegal Jonathan creates pristine documentation packages. Aunt Susan manages family communications, identifying who remains in Mom and Blair's information loop. I deliberately appear withdrawn in public, canceling appointments and declining social invitations. Let them think I'm defeated. The evidence suggests your sister and mother haven't just targeted you. Margaret observes one evening, reviewing our findings. There's a pattern of isolating anyone who threatens their social position. A new piece of intelligence arrives from Vanessa. Blair's fiancé, Thomas Andrews, comes from the Andrews family, regional banking titans and major philanthropists. Your mother is desperate to secure that connection. Aunt Susan confirms. She's been pushing Blair toward Thomas for years. The social standing alone would cement her position. Margaret taps her pen thoughtfully. Blair's engagement party is next week. Every key witness will be there: family, business associates, Thomas's family. Perfect timing, I say, a plan forming. That's when we present everything. The doorbell interrupts our planning. Through the peephole, I see my father shifting uncomfortably on the landing. When I open the door, Dad looks older than his 60 years. Your mother says you're threatening the family, he begins without preamble. My heart sinks. They're using him as their messenger. Can I come in? He asks, peering past me into the apartment. I hesitate but step aside. What exactly did she tell you? That you're planning some kind of revenge over the wedding cancellation. He sits heavily on my couch. Davina, I know you're hurt, but can't you just let this go? Family is family. The words sting, the familiar refrain that's kept me accepting their behavior for years. Dad, they lied to James about me. They created fake medical records. He shakes his head. Your mother explained about your problems. We only want what's best for you. For a moment, I consider showing him our evidence, but his expression, pitying and distant, tells me he's not ready to see it. After he leaves, I lean against the closed door, breathing deeply. They're using Dad now, I whisper to the empty apartment. This has to end. 2 days later, I polish the last slide of my presentation until it gleams with undeniable truth. The evidence sits arranged on Margaret's oak conference table, cease and desist letters in crisp manila folders, audio recordings verified by the forensic specialist, notarized witness statements from clients who experienced Blair's interference, every detail cataloged, every accusation backed by proof. Remember, Margaret says, adjusting her reading glasses as she reviews the documentation, when you present this, keep your voice steady, no matter what they say or how they react. I nod, rehearsing the opening statement in my mind for the 100th time. The truth doesn't need anger to be powerful, I say, repeating the mantra we've developed. Margaret gives a satisfied nod. Exactly, the evidence speaks for itself. She taps the forensic report confirming Blair's email IP address. This alone would convince most judges. Aunt Susan calls to confirm she's secured invitations for 3 key family members whose support will be crucial. Uncle William, Cousin Thomas, and Grandmother Eleanor, whose opinion carries weight with the extended family. They'll be there, Susan assures me. William especially wants to hear your side. He's always had questions about some of the stories Elaine told him. I close my eyes, visualizing the engagement party venue. Every person who will be present, every possible reaction, every contingency. For days, I've lived and breathed this plan, transforming raw pain into methodical preparation. 2 hours later, my phone buzzes. Margaret again. Jason Mitchell confirmed he'll attend. Jason, whose contract with my event planning business mysteriously dissolved after Blair, happened to run into him at a charity gala. He's bringing documentation of their conversation. The remaining pieces fall into place throughout the day. I rehearsed my presentation one last time, focusing on the irrefutable facts rather than my personal feelings. The betrayal still burns, but I've learned to channel that heat into precision rather than letting it consume me. My doorbell rings just after 5. Through the peephole, I see my mother's perfectly coiffed hair, her cream-colored suit immaculate as always. My pulse quickens, but I open the door, keeping my expression neutral. Davina, darling, Elaine says, concern dripping from her voice like honey laced with arsenic. I came to see how you're doing. We're all so worried about your behavior lately. I step back, allowing her into my apartment but maintaining distance. What behavior would that be, Mom? She glances around my living room, noting the absence of wedding magazines that once littered every surface. Her eyes linger on a legal pad partially covered by a newspaper. You've been calling family members, asking strange questions about Blair and me. Her voice shifts slightly, the concern hardening into something more pointed. Thomas's parents mentioned you contacted his aunt. So they know something's coming. I keep my face carefully composed, giving nothing away. I'm reconnecting with my family, I say simply. Is that concerning? Elaine steps closer, lowering her voice, though we're alone. Thomas's family is very concerned about the scandal, Davina. His father sits on the hospital board. His mother chairs 3 charity committees. Her eyes narrow. Think carefully before you do anything at the engagement party. The threat hangs in the air between us. For a moment, I see through the mask of maternal concern to the calculation beneath. They've detected my movements but don't know exactly what I've planned. I appreciate your concern, I reply, moving toward the door, but I need to finish getting ready for work. After she leaves, I call Margaret immediately. They know something's coming, I tell her, pacing my kitchen. Mom just came by with a thinly veiled warning. Margaret's voice remains calm. They're fishing for information. They know something's coming, but not what. This changes nothing about our approach. Should I warn Aunt Susan? What if they try to block her attendance? They can't without raising suspicions. Stay the course, Davina. Their awareness actually confirms we're on the right track. That evening, my team gathered at Margaret's office for our final meeting. Margaret spreads the legal documents across the conference table, confirming their admissibility one last time. Aunt Susan reports on family dynamics, identifying which relatives are most likely to listen with open minds. Jason reviews his statement about Blair's interference with my clients, while the forensic specialist confirms the enhancement of our audio recordings has been completed. Everything is in place, Margaret says, closing her leather portfolio. Tomorrow, we present only facts, no accusations. The evidence speaks for itself. I drive home under a sky scattered with stars, feeling strangely calm. Tomorrow, everything changes. The careful house of lies my mother and sister built over years will collapse under the weight of truth. In my bedroom, I lay out my outfit for Blair's engagement party, a blue dress that projects confidence without aggression. I review my presentation once more, then set my alarm. As I drift toward sleep, I realize I'm no longer afraid of them. Their power existed only in shadows, in whispers, in my isolation. Tomorrow, in the light of truth, that power evaporates. They're scared, I whisper to myself, understanding finally settling in my bones. That means we're on the right track. Next week, Blair's engagement party transforms the Oak Ridge Country Club into a showcase of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across the grand ballroom, where nearly 100 guests mingle in evening wear. I arrive 90 minutes early with Margaret, slipping through the service entrance where the catering staff bustle with last-minute preparations. Perfect timing, Margaret whispers, her gray silk pantsuit projecting authority as she guides me toward the small anteroom adjacent to the main hall. The projection equipment is already set up for the toasts. We just need to connect your laptop. I clutch my leather portfolio containing backup copies of all our evidence. My heart pounds against my ribs, but my hands remain steady as I arrange the documents in presentation order. Days and nights of meticulous preparation has led to this moment. Davina. My father's voice makes me freeze. I turn to find him blocking the doorway, a security guard in a dark uniform beside him. Dad's face is drawn, his shoulders hunched with tension. Your mother says you're not welcome here. The security guard steps forward. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. Margaret immediately places herself between us. On what grounds? Mrs. Hughes informed management that her daughter is subject to a restraining order and isn't permitted near the family. The guard's hand hovers near his radio. My stomach drops. That's completely fabricated. There is no restraining order. Dad looks from me to Margaret, uncertainty flickering across his face. Before he can respond, my mother appears at his shoulder, her champagne-colored dress shimmering under the lights. Behind her, faces turn toward our corner of the room. Richard, is she leaving? Mom's voice carries just loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. The guard steps forward again. Ma'am, if you don't come with me voluntarily, what seems to be the problem here? A tall man with silver hair approaches, the retired judge, Thomas's father. Blair materializes beside our mother, her engagement ring catching the light as she places a concerned hand on Mom's arm. My poor sister is having another episode, she announces, her voice pitched to Carrie. She needs help, not an audience. Several guests turn to stare. I feel the weight of their judgment, the story they've already been told about me taking root. The security guard reaches for my elbow. Is there a legal matter I should know about? Judge Thompson asks, his sharp eyes assessing the situation. My mother dabs at non-existent tears. We've tried so hard to protect Davina's privacy, but she's struggled with stability issues for years. The restraining order was a last resort after she threatened Blair. The room seems to tilt sideways. This is worse than I anticipated. Mom isn't just blocking my presentation, she's orchestrating my complete public humiliation. The security guard steps closer, radio in hand now. There is no restraining order. Margaret's voice cuts through the murmurs. She produces her bar association card. I'm Margaret Parker, Miss Hughes's attorney. What Mrs. Hughes just stated constitutes defamation per se. 2. Judge Thompson takes Margaret's card, studying it carefully. Aunt Susan appears from the growing crowd, guiding a woman in a burgundy gown toward us. Mrs. Thompson, I believe you should hear what Davina has to say before decisions are made. Thomas's mother looks between Blair and me, confusion evident in her furrowed brow. What's happening, Robert? She asks her husband. Margaret seizes the moment to distribute copies of our prepared legal documents to Judge Thompson. Sir, as someone with judicial experience, I believe you'll find these concerning. I keep my voice steady, though my heart hammers painfully. I have evidence everyone should hear. Evidence of a systematic campaign to damage my reputation through fabricated claims, exactly like the one just made about a non-existent restraining order. Judge Thompson scans the first page of our documentation, his expression growing grave. He signals the security guard to stand down with a subtle gesture. Perhaps we should review this in private. He suggests. No. I straighten my shoulders. The lies have been public. The truth should be too. Blair steps forward, her champagne flute trembling slightly. She's always been jealous of my happiness. She's trying to ruin my engagement party because her own wedding fell apart. Blair. Judge Thompson's voice carries the weight of 40 years on the bench. I'd like you to be quiet while I review these documents. The room falls silent. I watch Blair's face flush as her future father-in-law silences her. Judge Thompson continues reading, occasionally looking up at my mother, whose composure begins to crack around the edges. Thomas emerges from the crowd, his expression troubled as he takes in the scene. What's going on? Dad? Judge Thompson hands the documents to his son. You should see these, Thomas. My mother moves forward, desperation flashing in her eyes. Davina, if you continue this, you're no longer part of this family. Is that what you want? The crowd shifts uncomfortably at the naked threat. Thomas looks up from the papers, his face ashen. He turns to Blair. Did you send these emails? His finger points to a highlighted section. Just tell me the truth. Blair's eyes dart frantically between Thomas and her parents. They're obviously fake. Davina fabricated everything. That's not what I asked. Thomas's voice drops. Did you send these emails to James claiming Davina was in rehab when she was actually at a conference? Blair's mouth opens and closes, no words emerging. Her panicked expression reveals more than any confession could. The moment stretches as understanding dawns on Thomas's face. He steps back from Blair, creating physical distance that mirrors his emotional withdrawal. I move toward the projection system, connecting my laptop with hands that remain surprisingly steady. The crowd parts before me, their collective curiosity overriding social niceties. Mom makes one final attempt. Richard, stop her! But my father stands motionless, watching with the same stunned expression as everyone else. For the first time, he's seeing the mask slip, witnessing the desperation of a woman whose carefully constructed narrative is collapsing. Judge Thompson and his wife exchange concerned glances as Margaret hands them additional documents. My aunt positions herself protectively at my side while Margaret stands at the laptop, ready to advance slides. Just as we practiced, Margaret murmurs. The truth speaks for itself. I face the assembled guests' family members who've heard stories about me for years. Thomas's influential relatives, Blair's friends who've always viewed me with polite suspicion. The moment feels surreal after months of preparation. I press the button that will begin my presentation. The projector hums to life, casting its blue glow across the room. The first slide appears on the screen, and the room collectively gasps. I stand beside the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs despite months of preparation for this moment. Every eye in the room fixes on me, some curious, some concerned. others outright hostile. What I'm about to show you has been methodically documented and verified. I begin, my voice steadier than I feel. Each piece of evidence has been authenticated by legal and technical experts. The first slide appears, showing an email from Blair to my ex-boyfriend Michael. The date stamp is unmistakable, the day after I introduced him to my family 3 years ago. This email claimed I had been hospitalized for alcohol poisoning twice that year. I explain, pointing to the highlighted text. The IP address has been traced to our family home during hours when only Blair was present. Blair lunges toward the projector. This is ridiculous. You've obviously fabricated. Let her finish, Thomas interrupts, his voice sharp as he places a restraining hand on his fiancée's arm. I need to hear everything. The room grows painfully quiet. I advance to the next slide, a transcript of a recorded phone call between my mother and the Henderson wedding client. Mrs. Henderson confirmed she canceled my services after my mother called to express concerns about my reliability. I continued, my finger steady as it traces the damning words on screen. This occurred exactly 1 week after I mentioned the Hendersons were considering me for their daughter's wedding as well. From the corner of my eye, I see Mrs. Henderson herself rise slightly from her chair, her face flushed with recognition. It's true, she says, her voice cutting through the tension. Elaine called me personally. She said Davina was being investigated for professional negligence. My mother's face contorts. I was trying to protect everyone involved. Davina has always been. The next exhibits are perhaps the most serious. I continue, refusing to be derailed. These are my actual medical records, obtained through legal channels, showing I have never been treated for substance abuse or psychiatric issues. Side by side with these documents, I display the fabricated records James had described to me on that devastating phone call 3 months ago. A forensic document examiner has confirmed these falsified records were created using a family computer. Margaret adds, stepping forward with professional authority. This constitutes defamation and tortious interference with both personal and business relationships. Thomas's father leans forward in his seat, his judicial experience evident in his methodical examination of each document I present. He occasionally glances at Blair, his expression growing increasingly troubled. I received similar emails after meeting Davina's family. A voice calls from the back. It's Stephen, whom I dated briefly 2 years ago. They claimed she'd been fired from 3 jobs for erratic behavior. I believed it because the details seemed so specific. One by one, witnesses I've gathered over months of careful preparation speak up. Former clients, colleagues, even distant relatives, each confirming a piece of the pattern. Blair told me Davina had stolen designs from another planner. A client named Jennifer says, standing from her table, she showed me what looked like a cease and desist letter. I canceled our contract the next day. The evidence unfolds relentlessly, years of manipulation exposed in devastating sequence. My mother attempts several times to interrupt, but each objection withers under the weight of documented proof. Blair has gone completely silent, her face drained of color. As I display the final slide, a comprehensive timeline connecting every instance of interference, Judge Thompson rises from his seat. His commanding presence silences the murmurs that have been building around the room. As someone who spent 40 years evaluating evidence in a court of law, he says, his voice carrying the weight of his authority, I find Miss Hughes's case compelling and disturbing. This pattern of behavior would constitute actionable defamation in any courtroom in this country. The power in the room shifts with almost physical force. Thomas slowly removes his grandmother's emerald engagement ring from Blair's finger and places it deliberately on the table between them. I won't build a life on lies, he says, his voice low but clear enough for nearby guests to hear. My mother pushes through the stunned crowd toward me, her face twisted with desperation. We were protecting the family reputation, she shouts, grabbing at my arm. Everything we've built would have been destroyed by your poor choices. What poor choices, Mother? I ask, keeping my voice level. Having a successful career? Finding someone who loved me? Those were the things you couldn't allow? Before she can answer, a firm voice cuts through the tension. Enough, Elaine. My father stands in the doorway, his normally stooped shoulders squared with resolve. I hadn't known whether he would come after our last conversation. I've seen enough, he continues, walking toward us. I should have questioned what I was being told years ago. I failed you, Davina. The room grows impossibly quiet as he takes my hand. The simple gesture of support brings tears to my eyes after years of distance. Richard, you can't possibly believe. My mother begins. I've read everything, Elaine. The emails, the fake medical records, all of it. His voice breaks slightly. How could you do this to our daughter? My sister stares at the abandoned ring on the table, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. When she finally looks up, the naked hatred in her eyes makes me step back. You've always had to ruin everything, she hisses. You couldn't just stay in your place. And where exactly was my place supposed to be, Blair? I ask, genuinely curious after all these years. She doesn't answer, just grabs her purse and storms toward the exit. My mother follows after a moment of indecision, her social performance finally abandoned in defeat. As they leave, the tension in the room breaks. Thomas's mother approaches me first, her elegant hands clasping mine. I'm so sorry for what you've endured, she says quietly. No one should have to defend their character against such calculated attacks. One by one, family members and friends who had been poisoned against me for years approached with apologies and renewed support. My father stays by my side, his presence both unfamiliar and comforting. Aunt Susan wraps me in a tearful embrace. Your grandfather would be so proud of your courage, she whispers. He always said you had his backbone. Margaret watches from a respectful distance, giving me space to receive this long-overdue vindication. When our eyes meet across the room, she nods slightly, a small smile lifting the corner of her mouth. This is what justice looks like sometimes, she murmurs, when I finally make my way to her. Several clients approach with renewed interest in working together, their previous doubts erased by the truth. I accept their cards without commitment, still processing the seismic shift in my reality. As the crowd begins to disperse, Thomas approaches hesitantly. May I speak with you privately? He asks. We step onto the terrace overlooking the country club gardens. The evening air cools my flushed skin. I should have spoken to you directly when they first came to me with their concerns, he says, genuine regret in his voice. I'm deeply sorry for how I handled this. You didn't know them like I do, I reply without bitterness. He shakes his head. Thank you for saving me from making a terrible mistake. I would have been part of this family, perpetuating these patterns without even realizing it. As Thomas returns inside, I remain on the terrace, taking a moment alone to absorb what's happened. The weight I've carried for years has lifted, leaving me lighter yet somehow more firmly rooted in who I am. When I finally turn back inside, I find myself surrounded by people I never thought I'd have in my corner again. My father with his arm protectively around my shoulders, Aunt Susan linking her arm through mine, Margaret gathering our evidence with efficient care, former clients eager to work with me again. For the first time in my adult life, I stand in a room where everyone sees me clearly, not through the distorted lens my mother and sister created. The power they wielded through lies has dissolved in the face of simple, unadorned truth. I don't feel the savage triumph I once imagined. Instead, a quiet dignity settles around me like a mantle, as I walk through the room with my head high, surrounded by authentic support. After years of orchestrated isolation, I stare at the framed cease and desist acknowledgement hanging in my new office, the elegant cursive signatures of Elaine and Blair Hughes catching the morning light. 1 week after the engagement party that changed everything, they fled town for what Mom called an extended vacation. Their absence feels like the first real peace I've had in years. Coffee's ready, Dad says, walking into my office with 2 steaming mugs. The tentative smile on his face is becoming more natural with each passing day. He sets my mug down and leans against my desk, his eyes drifting to the framed document. 3rd session with Dr. Peterson yesterday, he offers. She's helping me understand how I missed the signs for so long. I take a careful sip. It wasn't your fault, Dad. Wasn't it? A father should protect his daughter, not become another weapon against her. His voice catches. I believed them without question. The office door swings open, and Aunt Susan breezes in with a box of pastries. Office-warming treats. Can't run an expanded business on coffee alone. Her return to town last month was unexpected. I left because of Elaine's lies. She'd told me over dinner. Now I can come home. Having her back feels like recovering a piece of my history I thought was lost forever. My phone buzzes with a message from Thomas's father. Partnership proposal ready for review. No rush. The business opportunity his family had initially offered Blair now sits in my inbox. Poetic justice has its own quiet satisfaction. Later that evening, I hosted the first honest family gathering my apartment has ever seen. Cousins, aunts, and uncles who had been kept at a distance by carefully cultivated rumors now fill my living space with laughter. The photo wall that once displayed carefully staged family portraits now showcases pictures of genuine moments with true friends. To Davina. Margaret raises her glass, the attorney who became my champion now standing as my closest friend, who showed us all that the truth needs no constant defender. I slept that night without waking, without the familiar 3 a.m. panic, without the doubts that had been planted and nurtured for so many years. 6 months pass in a blur of growth. My event planning business expands into a downtown office with 3 assistants. The nomination for the Small Business Award, the same one Blair won last year through connections rather than merit, sits on my desk beside a stack of new client contracts. The confidence I carry into business meetings no longer feels like a performance. When I present ideas, my voice doesn't search for approval with each sentence. The woman who once second-guessed every decision now makes choices with quiet certainty. "You're smiling more," Margaret observes as we finish the paperwork, making her my business partner. Her legal expertise combined with my event planning vision has created something neither of us could have built alone. Not just the professional smile, the real one that reaches your eyes. I catch myself laughing easily during lunch with a new client, maintaining firm boundaries when they request last-minute changes, navigating the conversation without that familiar undercurrent of anxiety. Small moments of peace accumulate into a new normal. Dad and I meet for Sunday brunches now, rebuilding slowly through honest conversations about the past. "I found these in the attic," he says one morning, sliding over photos from my childhood dance recitals. "You were always so determined even then." My friendship circle grows, connections based on genuine shared interests rather than family obligations. When I share personal information now, there's no flinch of fear, no calculation of how it might be weaponized against me. I hire Jessica, a young event planner whose eager enthusiasm reminds me of myself before the years of sabotage dimmed my light. "Trust your instincts," I tell her when she hesitates during her first client presentation. They're usually right. The invitation arrives on cream stationery, Cousin William's wedding next month. The RSVP card sits on my counter for 3 days, before I check attending with steady hands. Blair and Elaine will be there, their first family appearance since the confrontation. "I'll escort you," Dad offers when I tell him. I want everyone to see me stand with my daughter. His eyes, so like mine, hold steady without shame or doubt. Margaret smiles when I show her the RSVP. "A year ago, this would have terrified you." "A year ago, I was a different person," I replied. The scholarship for event planning students from difficult family backgrounds launches the following week. The first recipient reminds me of myself, bright, determined, and wounded by those who should have provided safety. From my new home's balcony, I watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of promise. The truth needed no constant defense, it simply needed to be spoken once with evidence and dignity. Tomorrow morning, I'll prepare a proposal for the Jenkins anniversary party. 40 years of marriage built on honesty and mutual respect. The kind of milestone worth celebrating properly. I close my eyes, breathing in the evening air. When people show you who they are, believe them but never let their version of you become your truth.